Hey everybody, it's Charisma with Garden Solutions. I am your joy cultivator, and today I'm going to talk about flower arranging. So I have been promising to make a video about flower arranging for a little while. I have a couple of different groups that have admired my flower arrangement skills, and they've asked me to teach them, and I do teach community classes with the Master Gardener program in the spring and in the fall, and it's a 2-hour long class that we all get to make arrangements, and I give a lot of detail on how to make the arrangements. This is not going to be that extensive. I'm going to give you a 1, 2, 3 tutorial and a couple of extra ideas, and if you have additional questions, you are welcome to reach out to me and ask away. So floral arrangement is obviously a very detailed art for some, and for others it's just about bringing some nature inside, and that's what it's really about for me. I grow an extensive cutting flower garden in the summertime, and I just love seeing those blooms, and bringing them inside just gives me so much pleasure and joy that I've sort of just honed my skills. But I did have a little bit of an advantage because when I was in horticulture school, I took flower arranging classes, and that's where I learned these principles. So to begin with, I want to let you know that floral arrangements obviously means flower, but you can have an arrangement that is non-traditional, and I highly encourage you to get super creative with what you're doing with the arrangements, with how you're bringing the outdoors inside. So I have a couple of examples. As we go into winter, flowers become a little less available, and yes, you could go to the grocery store and you can spend money on flowers, and that's perfectly fine. My husband is so used to me having flowers in the house that he typically will buy fresh flowers from the grocery store during the winter when our garden is not producing as many flowers and I'm not making the arrangements. I tend to really focus on crafts during the winter and let my garden just sleep. So while there are many flowers that do bloom during the winter, I don't have an extensive winter garden. So one of the options that you do have is silk flowers. You can buy quality silk flowers and put them in an arrangement. It's perfectly fine. I know there's been a lot of poo-pooing on silk flowers, but they have come a long way. These tulips were purchased at Michael's. The roses and lilies were given to me by a floral arranger. This section of this arrangement was actually my wedding floral bouquet. And then these are leftovers from one of my best friend's floral bouquets in her wedding. And as a matter of fact, her mother-in-law made these adorable vases, and it has their initials on it. Super cute. Doesn't always represent my home though, so I just put those on the back, and I still know that they're there, and nobody else has to ask me questions about whose initials these are. Anyways, this arrangement is often somewhere in my house because it has meaning to me. The other option that you can use is dried flowers. So I have several hydrangea bushes, and I will dry my hydrangea flowers and use them in arrangements and wreaths through the summer, or through the fall and winter. Another option, you could dry other things too. I dry certain dahlias, dry pretty nicely, hold the color, super fun. You can dry fillers. This is eucalyptus. It holds its color pretty good. It kind of gets a little bit shrivelly, but it still gives you some structure and color if you're using dry. Another option is to get creative with your gourds. It's the season of pumpkins and fun squash. And so I like to make arrangements like this for my table, where I just have some dried hydrangea in there and a few different gourds, because they're all edible and I'll end up eating them. So I just throw a couple of flowers in there until they get eaten, and they make a nice little center of the table bouquet. A fun little flower arrangement out of gourds, and that's great. There's options that you can use for your flower arrangements, like the bowl that I just showed you. You can use something fun like this. It's a little bit different. You could use a bud vase where you just have like one flower. It's clear. Can you see? You just have one flower and some fillers in there. This is a very traditional vase. It is 24 inches tall. So I like to show this one because the number one tip when you're choosing your flowers and your vase is to consider the fact that your flower arrangement should be 2/3 the height of your vase, which means the vase should be 1/3 of the total height, which showing this vase at 24 inches, that means your flower arrangement, the top of your flower arrangement, is going to be somewhere in this range and out that far as well. It's going to come out like this. It's going to come up this high, and that may be a lot more foliage and flower than you have available. So take that into consideration when you're making your choices. Another thing you can consider when you're making your choices is what kind of flower arrangement you want. If you want it to be more formal, informal, if you want to have a 360-degree view, if it's going to be flat on one side because it's going up against a wall, nobody will see that side. All of those things are something that you want to consider before you start making your arrangement. If you do want to make something a little bit more traditional and you want to use a clear vase, one option that you could use, you can buy a frog. They're called floral frogs. They're anywhere from $7 to $107, and there's antique ones that are just beautiful, but you could also just get away with using Scotch tape at the top of your vase and creating this grid and sliding your flowers in between. That flower is not going to work. In between each, just slide it in like this. And then it stays up. And you're not having to fight with it. And this is really traditional to have something of this form with like a tulip or something of that nature. The other option is to use a colored glass or ceramic or something else that you don't see the stems and you don't see how messy they can be. If you don't care, don't worry about that. You could also use floral beads. They're little water beads. They blow up and they come in hundreds of different colors, and you can put those in there first and use them. You could use them to help hold up your stems, but you could also use them to hide your stems and create a really beautiful base. So I wanted to show you what I traditionally see people do with their home flowers and bring them inside and put them in an arrangement. And it typically looks something like this, which is fun and colorful, and this one is pretty symmetrical, you know, perfectly fine, really cute. There's a couple of elements missing that tell you that this is not professionally done. The first one is there's no fillers, not really. And the second one is that it doesn't follow that rule of the flowers being 2/3 the height. So these flowers should be closer to this height on this arrangement. if you're happy with this and this brings you joy, do this. That's all. Okay. But if you want something a little bit more spectacular, I'm going to go into some details with that.